The last time we're still on two topics. We're still on why would I believe in and I'll drop it, put it in a different way. An imaginary God coming from an imaginary book, the Bible. But where we left off last time was Deuteronomy, and Eric was upset because in Deuteronomy there were penalties that the Lord put in the book about certain sexual acts, bestiality, sleeping with your mother, sleeping with your sister.
No, hold on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let me just jump in there. Yeah, it's a man lies with these things because in the Bible women are treated as property. But two, it's if a man sleeps with a daughter and a mother. So it's like don't sleep with your mother-in-law. I don't know that it has a specific incest clause. It probably doesn't, since incest is an act. Does it? I think it does actually. But which is strange because many of the heroes of the Old Testament also slept with their families. But you seem to have left off when a man lies with a man, which I believe is Leviticus 20:19. But in any case, and for all these crimes, the punishment is death.
I'm not saying they're crimes.
God is saying they're crimes.
What I've been given, they're warning labels. And
yes, if you do X, you will die.
Bestiality, it was sleeping with your mother. It covers all sexualities that are not in our physiological makeup.
Homosexuality is within our physiological makeup, Rob. I don't
want to touch gay because
the Bible does.
I know gay people. I know how it goes. The only thing I can say is, in your physiology, you can't have children.
I beg your pardon?
Sorry. A gay couple cannot bear a child. Is that correct?
Lesbians exist.
Correct.
Another thing the Bible leaves out repeatedly, probably because at the time women were property, so the idea that they would do anything that was displeasing to either their father, their father-in-law, or their husband was just not thought of because you could just kill them anyway because women were property in the same way that slaves were. But yeah, sure. If I marry another dude who doesn't have a uterus, then neither of us have a womb, then neither of us can give birth. There are infertile couples all the time.
Yes, being able to give birth and being able to have children really are two different things.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, there's that, and then there's also, I can raise a child pretty well. He's going to be a chess boxing champion.
You were pretty much, you were left out of the scene as far as children bearing, unless, that's it.
It took human beings conquering nature to make this happen. Funnily enough, there wasn't a miracle by any god that made it happen. But
okay, so Rob, I'm sorry if I'm correct. You were trying to make the point of, you were being asked, why do you believe in an imaginary God coming from an imaginary book? And you were trying to make a point about all of these things. Mm-hmm. So what, can you elaborate further on that?
Yeah, we did sort of run roughshod here.
The imaginary God, the imaginary book create a better life for everybody. And I could go. I have to answer one question. Women were not considered properly.
They weren't considered properly. You are right about that.
Property
is.
Let me look.
Is what you meant.
I prayed on it. I think the problem with what has occurred here, why atheism has become more popular, is because people don't understand people anymore. And I would take it a step further that people who don't understand people don't understand themselves.
Okay.
Once again, it's an identity crisis that is prevalent in the 20th century.
Let me just ask you to clarify. When you say atheism has become more popular because people do not understand people, what is it about? So presumably, are you just referring to people not accepting faith and people deconverting? Right. What is it about, in your words, not understanding people that would lead someone to, for example, leave the church?
Why would somebody leave the church? Because they don't understand people. If you don't feel comfortable within your own church, if you don't feel comfortable within your own family, you're going to find something. Why is it not making you comfortable?
So to be clear, when you
look at the Bible, you look at God, and then you say, well, that must be it. But once
So,
Rob.
that your identity, you don't understand people.
So, Rob, can I ask you a question? According to what you believe, the whole purpose is to understand your God. Is that not correct?
No, people. You're
supposed to understand people, but not
people.
God.
Excuse me? Sorry.
Isn't the point to understand God? Because according to what you believe, man is fallible. So therefore,
I think that's correct. But you have to understand people so you can understand God, because God is the authority of people, not the authority as in arresting and punishment. He knows us better than we know. But if you can't understand people, then you can't understand God.
just to be clear, are you saying that God does not punish people?
No, I would say up until the end of the Old Testament, yeah, that ended. Jesus became Lord, and the world changed again.
So to be clear, is God eternal?
It's all about healing, not about destruction.
Okay, so to be clear, is God eternal?
Yes, correct.
Is God unchanging?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so a moment ago when you said the world changed because Jesus became Lord, presumably Jesus, being the same as God, has always been Jesus and has always been Lord and hasn't changed.
No, that's untrue.
Can you clarify?
He walked the earth as a man. He was just he was like the seed that comes out of your sack. One piece. He walked the earth, he experienced it, died for it, came back, and now he rules because he knows it better than the Father does. That's a dynasty of heaven.
So to be clear, are Jesus and God, the Father, different beings?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I just needed that clarified. So God, the Father, is responsible for all of the Old Testament
yes, that's correct.
crap.
Yes.
Where people are suffering and dying and he doesn't give a shit in this. So when people are suffering and dying now and God doesn't intervene, the God that is responsible is Jesus.
No, once again, you're putting everything on God and not understanding man.
But God is supposed to be all powerful and all knowing and all. Okay. So wouldn't the onus be on God for all of this clarification?
No, he's not. If he had to stop every crime, every thief, every murder, everything that goes on, it would be a nonstop action because you don't understand man.
So
what
God,
you're doing is
God has looked at...
God is a scapegoat for man.
No, it's not a scapegoat. If you claim to be the authority and the teacher and you're going to punish people with hell, then you're responsible if you have rules and tell people to follow them and enforce them in a specific way.
The interpretation of hell is the one you're using is a very generic brand
That's
used
true.
by churches to teach kids not to get in bad trouble, turn into, say, Butch Cassidy or John Dillinger. That is always been the stopgate of the church to prevent people from becoming real bad.
Okay, so...
The difference between little bad and big bad, correct?
I feel like there's differences in the amount of bad. So to be clear, can you tell me what you believe about hell?
I don't discern it. I've heard a lot of stories about. I've heard people say, "Man, I wish I was sitting there watching that guy fry," and I don't get into it. I believe there's in heaven. There also is, even though there's eternal love and everything that goes along with it without a world of sin, there is some kind of caste system that makes it work out somehow. To say that we're all equal in heaven after life on earth with somebody that really hurt people in a lot of ways, no, I don't. But I don't discern it that much. I just don't believe in eternal fire forever and ever and ever. And there's a lot of popular, very learned people who study the Old Testament and the New Testament agree with that. That is a church fallacy, but it's put there, once again. It's a label.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Rob. Yeah. Can I ask you a question? You said you don't believe with that with that fallacy of the church, do you think that that is a fallacy on behalf of God or on behalf of people?
People. They're not. Many people don't read the Bible, first of all.
Agreed.
You might have one on your. A lot of people might have one, and a lot of people don't even have them in their house.
Okay.
But once again, I'm going to stick to it. It's a stopgate to prevent people from becoming worse than they are. So, in a lot of cases, I was listening to a guy talk the other day. He got out of jail, and he's still copping an attitude. Like it doesn't work.
What?
You're right or you're wrong.
Oh, okay. So to be clear, you believe that if a person is afraid of hell, this will stop them from sin.
Partially, yeah. I would say it works a little. I would say it works some. Yeah, it depends. It's all in the teachers. It's all in the ministry. It's it goes on and on.
So
it's all in the home.
If God has given His message to mankind, which stop me if I say something that you don't believe, because I'm trying to meet you where you're at, but I wasn't gonna, grill you for 20 minutes about the specifics of your belief. I feel like that would be unfair. But again, stop me if I say, Jesus is an antelope, and you don't believe that. I'm assuming that you don't believe Jesus is an antelope, but to be clear, God has given, His word and guidance. Jesus has given His word and guidance to humanity. Jesus cares for the well-being of humans, and Jesus is maximally powerful.
I would say it's maximally powerful, but he doesn't use it because it's been man's problem since the Garden of Eden. Since the fall of Eden, man has brought a lot of problems about himself.
Now we have something that I think might be an error in the way that you've described your theology, because I believe that you said that all of the Old Testament stuff was the responsibility of God the Father and not of Jesus. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden, Old Testament, and then all the things that happened after that, including the Tower of Babel and all of the genocides that the God the Father commanded His people to commit. Those are instances of God the Father intervening in human affairs in a way that you say Jesus does not.
Yes, we can go there, but the interpretation you're implying is that the people that were conquered by war, and that's basically what was going on in the Middle East,
and then genocide.
God assisted because He felt they were a better people. What do you want from me? The term hell comes from a tribe in the Middle East that used to sacrifice children to a pagan god.
Okay, but doesn't hell exist?
So what we're talking about is God choosing a specific people that He would watch and listen to and said, well, they're better. I'll support them. Is there anything wrong with that?
Yes.
If you don't understand man, then you can't understand God.
No. If your goal is, wow, all of the humans are my children and I love them all, then picking this favorite and saying, hello, my favorite people, go next door and kill every man, woman, and child that lives over there because I don't like them anymore, then yes, there is something wrong with that.
No, you're telling the story wrong. Pretty much the story is, in that time, in that area of the world, it was kill or be killed. You're misinterpreting.
Is God powerful enough to stop humans from killing each other if He wanted to?
No, we were born with. We've always had freedom
if God
of choice.
wanted to, well, except when God intervenes, which He does in the Old Testament. But if God wanted to stop one person from murdering another, could He?
He wouldn't. It wouldn't
yes,
fix
but
it.
Could he?
That's a yes or no answer, Rob.
So
you can't have a yes or no answer. You can't have it because it's a no. It's like saying no.
No. So am I more powerful than God? Yes or no?
You?
Yes.
You have freedom of choice, but
yes. But if God decided, you know what, I'm going to kill Jamie right now, could He?
He wouldn't.
I know that He wouldn't, Rob. That's not the question I asked.
Yes,
is He strong enough? Right, like I am strong enough to flip this table, but that doesn't mean I'm going to flip it right now.
I don't know what to say about that question.
Answer it honestly.
No, he wouldn't. You just
All
wouldn't.
right.
That's not. That's,
Thank you.
That's like saying a good man would kill somebody. If you look at the book of the Old New Testament, he was a good man.
Who
he
was?
wasn't going about killing people. You're asking if a good man would kill somebody.
Who
I have
was?
to say no.
Who was?
Jesus was a good man.
Yes, but earlier in this call, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that God the Father and Jesus the Son were different people.
Correct.
Okay,
Different gods.
so different gods. So when I'm describing atrocities ordered by God the Father in the Old Testament, and you say, but Jesus was good, you're describing a different person. So if I'm going to say God the Father in the Old Testament is responsible for the genocide that he instructed his people to commit, and you say, but Jesus said, dance in flowers and be nice to each other, you have not answered the objection I have raised. The objection I've raised is, in the Old Testament, God the Father instructs his chosen people to commit genocide.
There's a few instances. I remember
yes.
When he came down. All right, when he came down with the tablets, correct? But you didn't have the information on that either. The people that were worshiping the idol were planning to kill Moses.
Okay,
you're assuming
that has nothing to do with the genocide. Look, in the Old Testament of this book, God says to his people, go kill all the, I've been reading the Book of Mormon, so I was about to say Lamanites, but that's the wrong people. Go kill all the Amalekites. Thank you. Go kill all the Amalekites and their children, and except for the young virgins that you keep for yourselves, and all of their animals and their plants so that nothing will grow there. It's very much go kill all of those people, all of them, wipe them out. That's something that God commands. So the fact that, he protected Moses from an uprising isn't related to that act of ordering genocide.
I have a modern-day comeback where I'm trying to explain what the Middle East was like back then.
Okay, the Middle East back then was very clearly directly under the heel of Yahweh God.
I'm going to give you a modern-day example of a tribe, and I can't remember, I don't know exactly where this island is. If you just go, they're so secluded, nothing, no electronics. If you go there by boat and walk on that island, they will kill you instantly.
Yeah, South Sentinel Island.
Yes, I remember that.
South Sentinel Island.
Now we're getting down to what true tribalism was thousands of years ago.
Why didn't God change that?
Why
didn't God change that? Why did God play into real tribalism and say, God as I'm worshipped now is a tribal God and is giving tribal instructions, almost as if he was man-made rather than the other way around, instead of saying, actually, you know what? You guys shouldn't be separate tribes. I shouldn't take a side in this. I should tell both sides not to commit atrocities like genocide and not to commit not to go to war over things that I could provide. If I was God, I wouldn't leave people hungry to fight over food. Right. I would feed them and tell them to be nice to each other.
Right. And
why didn't your God do that?
How do you know that?
You don't understand people enough. You blame God for everything. You want miracles all the time.
Christians pray for miracles all the time.
And also talking about the God that was on the people that were on the island, the guy who was killed was trying to spread his message of his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, even though he had been warned repeatedly not to go there. I mean, the people on that island repeatedly... he was attacked for trying to come to that island at least twice before he was actually killed. So who are you to say that perhaps it wasn't the same God that was telling those people, hey, kill this guy because he is trying to attack you?
So now you're saying there's a God that tells people to kill people?
Hey, Jamie just said God commanded the genocide of men, women, and children. That is what the God of the Christian Bible has done.
I think you misinterpret self-defense.
No, I don't, because self-defense isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about a God that said, go kill those people.
Correct.
That's not self-defense. Additionally, if God can appear to the ancient Israelites and say, follow my instructions and persuade them, was God too weak to appear to the ancient Amalekites?
have no how he had to start somewhere, and I guess it was we do know it was with Adam and Eve. You have the best that there is, and you try to take that. I don't know what to tell you.
So what you're saying is God couldn't do better.
Right.
God settled, is what you're saying.
God just threw up his hands and said, "Forget it."
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He accomplished, and what we're talking about is
he accomplished genocide.
Also.
Is what we're talking about.
He taught the people how to protect themselves.
He taught people how to commit genocide.
All right, listen. You refuse to believe the fact that people are people and there's a duality of nature.
You refuse to acknowledge that the God in the Old Testament commanded genocide.
He taught them how to defend themselves.
No, he told them to commit genocide.
I'm telling you, if you couldn't walk.
If he'd said, hey, build fortifications, here's some weapons, never use them offensively, but your weapons are more powerful, that would have been a more effective, less genocide way of defending yourself. Why is it that I'm smarter than the God of the Old Testament?
You're not.
Really? Because I just thought of a way of instructing ancient people
to not go out and to protect themselves without having to kill a whole bunch of people.
You can't figure out what genocide is. Do you know what genocide is, Rob?
Yeah, Hitler did it. All the leaders, all the communist leaders.
Great.
We know what genocide is. We know what a world is without religion. That we know.
Oh, my God.
We know what godless men are like.
I mean, to be clear, to be very, to be clear, it's you're right, as this is all made up and everyone gets to say that they're the real fans of this book. But if you're going to try and tell me that Hitler, among others, didn't say, I'm doing this, it's our duty to our creator to wipe out the Jews, then we're going to have a real problem with the historical record. But in any case, I don't have a problem with you saying, oh, Hitler was wrong about God, because that's a very easy apologetic to say. But I get told, oh, no, Hitler was an avowed atheist, and he said he was an atheist far too many times. There's no
He identified as Catholic.
Yeah.
Anybody can identify themselves with any religion to cover their activities.
I just wanted
politics go.
I just wanted to make sure that we were.
Once again, you don't understand man. You're sitting there saying Hitler was really a believer in God, but how do you know he lied about everything else? Why can't you lie about what he believes in?
I mean, to be clear, he didn't lie about what he wanted to do when he was in power. And he didn't lie to his generals.
For a long time. It wasn't like
he was honest. He was honest about how he hated the Jews.
So you know more about Hitler's understanding, but you don't understand why God just threw up his hands. Is that what you're saying, Rob?
I know why God threw up his hands. First of all, why? You got to ask yourself, why did God create his son, and why did his son eventually become the God of heavens over earth?
Because that's the way the early Christians, when they fought wars over whose version of the story that was a continuation of an ancient story, decided that the story was going to go. Because the early proto-Orthodox Christians defeated the Marians, I think I've probably butchered the name.
There's lots of stories, but once again, creating
and the one that was
being given on God's shoulders. That's all it is. You have to understand man to understand God. Why he says
yes, you do. You have to understand that men create gods.
Bad.
Yeah, things are bad. You've said that. Oh no. If Jesus in the modern day, here we'll go back to the modern day because for whatever reason you refuse to admit that genocide exists. And was instructed by God in the Bible.
I said it existed in
you've claimed multiple times that genocide is self-defense.
Genocide, people.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Where are we going with
so did the God of the Old Testament.
You're calling it genocide.
Yes, because he said, "Go forth and kill all of the people." That's what genocide is.
No, that's not genocide.
That's genocide.
You kill your own people. That's genocide.
What? Wait a minute.
Okay.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Do we need to go to the textbook definition of genocide?
All right. if your problem is with the specific word genocide, then we'll do pogrom. All right. He committed a pogrom successfully against the Amalekites. Is that morally acceptable?
It says, according to...
I would say the Amalekites at that time would have been a real problem for anybody. We're going back to the
island.
My God. You couldn't go there.
So to be clear, it was justified for God to instruct his people to go kill all of this particular tribe of God's children. Was that action justified?
Not aware of it.
It's the one we've been talking about this whole time, where the ancient Israelites in the book.
About one specific text, like what was going on.
I'm talking about one very specific example, and I'm asking you the very specific question: is that morally acceptable?
If it was in self-defense, yes.
All right, it wasn't.
How do you know? It doesn't say anything. It just gives
book
a few lines.
Right here does not describe self-defense. It describes the complete annihilation of a group of people based on their culture and heritage. Is that a morally acceptable thing?
You have no other evidence. You have 2 lines.
Well, to be very clear, the evidence shows that most of the things written about in the Old Testament didn't happen. However, my understanding is that your belief is that the Old Testament in this book describes the nature of God the Father. Am I wrong in believing that the Old Testament of this book describes the actions and nature of God the Father?
As the protector, yes.
All right, fantastic. In this book that you've just said describes the nature and actions of God the Father instructs his people to go forth and kill all the Amalekites. Was that something that is morally acceptable?
I don't know. I'd have to look up and find out what the Amalekites were like. I believe it was self-protection.
Wow.
Self-protection. Just like in the world we live in today.
Oh, my God.
Self-protection exists on many levels.
I have a deep passion for current affairs and politics, and I thought I was a cynic. But apparently, I'm not, because, wow, all right, I'm a little taken aback.
I try not to pay attention to politics. I really don't. It shows. I knew somebody very personally. It probably drove them out of their mind watching that every day.
Well,
yeah,
no, I'm not.
It can be very disturbing to watch current affairs.
Well, Rob, I will just say that I think
if you can't have compassion in your life for the people that are needy, yes.
You are absolutely correct.
But if you don't have compassion for people that people need protection at the same time, you don't understand man or woman. We keep using the word man.
Well, it's interesting.
I think there's a misconception about what your understanding of what woman is too. She's not a slave.
I agree. Let me make that very clear.
Okay.
No human is property, rightly called.
Should be, right.
Or should be rightly called property, regardless of whether or not they are a woman. So I can agree with you on that point.
Yeah. But the way you interpret the Bible, you miss so many. You know less than you say. You read it and you take it as text, but you don't have any underlying theme that makes it. You have no knowledge of the underlying theme.
But if this is God's infallible and perfect word, then how can Jamie just reading those words be interpreted in any way than other than what they're supposed to be said and other than what's said?
Like life, Jamie doesn't understand people well enough. That's it.
To be clear, I don't understand people well enough. Therefore, God's perfect word doesn't work.
Hey,
if you don't understand something, if you don't understand yourself,
why is God bad at explaining things?
He does. It depends if you listen. Just say you have a thought, and you ignore that thought. What's he supposed to do? Hit you with a stick? You're ignoring your own thoughts.
Let's say that
I talk to you now.
Let's say I have a thought and I listen to the thought and the thought is bad. And then someone says that thought is bad and I say, no, you were wrong about it. Let's say that I read a book with plain text and I say, wow, the book says what this plain text is. And someone says, no, you're wrong about that because you don't understand because. Where am I supposed to go from there, Rob?
If you don't know right from wrong from now, then
no, I mean that.
So let's go to the story of Abraham, where God commanded him to kill his son as a test of loyalty. Was Abraham hearing voices, or was he following? Did he really understand what God told him to do, or was telling him to do?
Because of today's society, with many people having mental illnesses, that's a difficult. You use that subject But because of present day society.
But we're not talking about present day. This was back in the biblical times.
Scapegoat. Nobody can handle that now because society has too many social problems. We can't use that. All we can say is he didn't kill him. God stopped him. It was a test.
So to be clear,
wait.
It was the word of God.
Talk about the two brothers. Here we are again, understanding people. One brother offers something better to God. The other brother doesn't. What's happened? Instead of the other brother killed. That Cain killed Abel. Why? Jealousy. Now you got to understand man a little better.
Yeah, I also understand that God didn't stop that.
Like I said, if God had to hold everybody's hand back, control everybody's mind, we'd be a bunch free will.
He would be doing lots of work. Oh no, boo-hoo.
He would have to take some responsibility.
He would have to take responsibility.
If people have to take responsibility, so should God.
I believe because we're looking at the coming again, and he is taking responsibility. If you
really,
actually, no, he isn't.
Yeah. To be clear, when you say taking responsibility, Rob, hold on. One question. Yeah. When you say he is taking responsibility, do you mean that right now God is taking actions to mitigate atrocities? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. It could be worse.
Which ones?
Or even though we have a war, I think it's the longest unofficial war that's been going on in history in the Middle East. The wars have gotten smaller. God has his hand in politics.
But then why aren't they just disappearing altogether?
Yeah.
Why is it? Yeah.
Because, I mean, in my mind, the UN peacekeeping force is doing a bang-up job and God is absent. What are you talking about here? In what way is God intervening?
Why?
I should say.
The question you have to ask yourself: why? And when he comes, he'll have the answer. But why did it take thousands of years since his second coming? Why? There's a reason. It's not just
because it's a legend and not the truth.
People are being punished. They got to, they deserve what they get. No, there's a real reason why the third coming.
Well, we'd like to really know what that reason is.
Yeah.
That's
why is God waiting?
Discernment.
Do you know why God is waiting?
Off the top of my head, when he, from what I've heard and what I've read,
like everything is off the top of your head.
He's still not going to be recognized. It's going to take a couple hundred years for the war, and he's not coming as a ruler. He's bringing back something from the Garden of Eden, whatever, that is going to return us to a state of non-sin, whatever you want to compare that to. But there's a reason. It's a down-to-earth reason. It's not punishment. It's something that couldn't happen in the past. It has to happen now. Communication. What if the Lord came?
So when Jesus came the first time, why did he not leave instructions for the creation of the internet?
Because we would not even know what he was talking about. That's a big thing.
Is God a teacher?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is he incapable? Is God capable of teaching human beings how to use technology?
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
That's
so
how we got this far in 2,000 years.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it took 2,000 years. It took the Dark Ages of Europe, the Inquisition, basically human events unfolding in the way that you would expect human events to unfold if humans were not aided by a divine being. That needed to happen for 2,000 years before now he can start to prepare to come back?
Yes. What do you want me to say?
That's the clearest yes we've heard you say so far, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Let's say if he was here 300 years ago, no telephones, no way of communicating.
What does God need with a telephone?
Right.
Because how are people going to talk to people? What if somebody met God and
why can't God appear in more? Okay, is God capable of appearing in more places than just Jerusalem?
Yes, but I don't think
so. If God wanted to, and He said, "You know what? I'm going to come down. I'm going to appear in Moscow first, and I'll teach there for a week, a month, 3 days, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to appear in Berlin for 3 days and teach there for a week, a month, 3 days. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to appear in Johannesburg and then, in South America, in North America, wherever. Is God capable of doing that?
I say yeah, but I have to counter with a question: is he going to return in the flesh? If he returns in the flesh, you have to deal with him in the flesh, like you did.
All right.
Like
so, let's say he doesn't return in the flesh. Let's say he returns in one of those places, and to all of those other places, he sends the angel Gabriel and the archangel.
You wouldn't be able to handle it.
We wouldn't be able to. You can't handle the truth of God, apparently.
That's pretty much it. You would not be able to handle it. If an angel appeared in front of, in Moscow, in front of the
But we're not talking about angels. We're talking about God.
Putin, you wouldn't be able to handle it. It just would be too much for the mind to handle. That's all
So now, who's the one who doesn't understand people? If you're all outright saying that we wouldn't be able to handle God's appearance, who's the one that doesn't understand people?
People, you don't understand people. You're saying you could handle it. I'm saying you couldn't. You are.
No, you're the one who's saying. You're the one who's saying that people.
Breakdown. You would.
Okay.
You would.
I'm sorry.
Put him in. If all of a sudden a heavenly body appeared in Moscow in front of all of them, they'd have nervous breakdowns. It would be. They wouldn't be able to handle it. And then they would misinterpret it.
Actually,
if you ever. Yeah, it would be like
there's a heavy religious and conservative presence in the Russian Federation with the presence of the Orthodox Church, right? Like, they're not going to be mystified by the appearance of Jesus.
Yes, they would be. You could, even when, the atheist community denies modern day miracles, as it is. Anybody comes up with a miracle, you counter. So it shows quite bluntly.
No, if someone comes up with and says that X is a miracle, and I say, show me the miracle, and it turns out that they don't have sufficient reason to believe that it's a miracle, and I say, I don't have sufficient reason to believe that it's a miracle, and they get butthurt. That tends to be what happens.
But that's the same thing that would happen if the Lord...
So what you're saying is God is God capable of appearing to people such that they know it is God?
They wouldn't be able to handle it. Nope, they would interpret.
Is God powerful enough to compel, in a persuasive way, to persuade people that he is God?
Yes, but I think he's coming.
So why doesn't he do that? He's going to appear in the flesh.
Well,
so why didn't he do that already?
People can't handle it.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. That's not. That's man. Man cannot handle a lot of things.
Yeah, but you've just said that God can appear to people such that they will understand that it is God.
That's correct.
God did that before without the context of most people, or a large number of people on earth already believing he was real, right? That's the story. He showed up and no one had heard of him before, and then he was there, and he was a big hit. He was bigger than the Beatles, whatever, and then he disappeared for a couple thousand years, and now you're saying, everyone is waiting for the comeback tour. It's going to be a world tour, but no, he's too shy to appear on stage? What is this? Why doesn't he show up?
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. So is he waiting for something specifically? A red cow, perhaps?
Yeah, I would say the world to get to the point where it would be able to accept him, it would be able to accept what he has to offer to bring back once was before the fall of Eden. The world has to be ready for it.
Okay, so what does a world that is ready for Jesus look like?
A desperate one. One where families can't unite, high drug addictions, suicide.
And that means the world's ready for him now, supposedly. My goodness.
To be clear.
That's a phenomenon now. This is what the current social situation, the divorce rate, abortion, got
to watch out for those divorces. So to be clear, in the Middle Ages, when 1/3 of the population of Europe died from
the bubonic plague,
that wasn't a desperate population of humanity.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm not.
I think that's true.
You know how you go there. You know what overpopulation is, and it sounds sick to say.
Please don't tell me that was necessary.
Yes, you put it on the table. What are you going to do?
What am I going to do? Create a more sustainable Earth that can maintain a population?
No, it was a disease. He didn't bring it on.
I'm sorry. Can anything happen that your God chooses not to allow? Is there a force more powerful than God?
No.
Okay, so if God wanted there to not be a bubonic plague, he could make there not be a bubonic plague. You can tell me he wouldn't, and you can tell me he didn't, because very clearly he didn't. But if he had wanted to, could he have done that?
I don't know. I'll tell you, I don't know.
Okay.
And then, you know what?
What we're assuming
It's
is
okay to say you don't know, because guess what? That is what many atheists also say.
Yeah.
That we don't know. So we tend to understand more people more than you think.
Yeah.
Do you realize how we finally figured out what transferred the plague? Maybe God gave us the ability to understand it was done by rats. You want instantaneous fix of everything.
God sent the plague of rats for the bubonic plague?
Yes,
here's the thing.
plague was brought on by rats.
I'm told
No, it was brought on by poor sanitation and poor living conditions,
Yeah.
which if there was a God that could have instructed the people in Europe and London to better improve on their sanitation system, then perhaps the bubonic plague would not have occurred.
Yeah.
That
and there was a pope that said that.
Now you're telling that God should teach people how to clean their houses.
That's correct.
I'm sorry.
That is correct.
If there's a God that has all knowledge and all power and can inspire people with knowledge, and he cares about human beings, maybe passing on germ theory of disease would be a good place to start.
Right.
And it did. Eventually it did.
Wow. All right. You know what? When I turned in homework late in school, I still got an F. Jesus gets an F.
Yes.
I don't think so. I think you're asking for everything so quick that
I'm promised everything so quick when Christians come forth and say, oh, look, this book describes the nature of God. And in it, it says it's either 2 or 3 people that gather in my name and pray for something shall not be denied it. And they say, oh, and God is all powerful and God is all knowing and God can help everything. And yet people still get raped and genocide still happens and disease still spreads and hurricanes still destroy things. So forgive me for saying, you know what? These 2 things don't add up.
I'm sorry you have that interpretation. It's not nothing I can help you overcome because you
1 Peter 3:15. Give me a reason for the joy that you have found.
Yeah, that's it. I found joy. A lot of people have found joy. We want you to find joy.
Yep.
I
would say
you depressed.
Here's what I'll say.
See you misled.
And I'm glad for that. And I do not want to see you depressed or you misled. And so I think that perhaps either again next week or the week after, I would like to continue this conversation. And I know that Eric would love to be in on this call and
there was something I needed to tell him, but I had to.
He's right on the other side of the glass.
Audience.
He's in the
Eric.
audience.
Hey. Enough time. I appreciate you let me talk and I listen to you guys sincerely.
Yeah, and thank you for I get a little bit worked up when people tell me that there's good reasons for genocide. So I'm sorry if I came across a bit harsh.
It's not genocide.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye,
All right.
Rob. Thank you, Rob, for calling in, and I hope to talk to you again.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, well.
Ooh, that was fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was a good first call. Yep.
Eric is giving us both a thumbs up. This is hilarious.
Yep. Yep.
Just this idea of, we're becoming more godless because we don't understand people, but that's exactly the point.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't circle back around to, I'm sorry, you're saying that now families and humanity is worse off and now humanity is more desperate. 1/3 of humanity has access to the internet. Indoor plumbing exists. I'm sorry, when all of the world, all of humanity lived in what we would consider dire poverty by today's standards, humanity was more desperate. Mm-hmm. Whatever. It's weird to pick only one of the things that he said that was that ridiculous and go over it. But
it was constant. It was consistent contradictions as well. So that was very, very interesting. But
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think consistent contradictions is called religious indoctrination.
And it's definitely called the Bible too, right?
relatively consistent.